All right. How's it going, folks? Appreciate your patience on getting ready there. Oh boy, tell you what, I will never take a nap right before podcasts again. That's how you know when you're getting old, you gotta try to squeeze in a nap here and there. I hardly ever take a nap, but I'm getting burnt out today from staying up late a lot of nights and decided to squeeze a little hour nap, and man, it just really made everything kind of speed up here right up to the last minute. So never do that again. It's like, at least as far as I can, as much as I can help it, I'm never gonna do that again. But you know how those days go, where you do so much in a day where it just feels like the day has gone so long. That's kind of how today went. Had to squeeze that little bit of time in because I got to stay up late tonight and work as well. So but anyways, welcome back, episode 60. Appreciate you guys showing up, sharing this podcast, and kind of just joining and contributing to any of these conversations that we have here. And so let's just get right into it here. This is The Virus. If you're not familiar with this podcast, it's not a COVID-19 podcast. It's a podcast instead where we have contagious combos and viral viewpoints. So we talk a lot about things with substance, things that are thought-provoking, things that are profound, and hopefully that kind of linger into the week here on out as you kind of go on about your week. Hopefully some of these conversations we have are going to kind of incept your mind and get you thinking about some things and get you thinking about things you never thought about before. So that's kind of the hopes of this podcast, is so because I have a lot of these weird thoughts going on. You know, I look at things through different angles, and the hopes is I love having conversations with people that kind of go down that path where it kind of is just a conversation that nobody really thinks about and gets you thinking about something rather than just your everyday thought process. And so that's why I kind of started this podcast, is so that we can kind of talk about those types of things and get your thoughts on it, get your viewpoints, get a different perspective of it, based on, you know, your experience with your life, because everybody's got their own viewpoint, and that's the beauty of life, is getting people's thoughts and contributing different angles and getting us thinking about things a little bit differently. So anyways, you can find this podcast on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So any one of those channels, follow us, like it, subscribe, share it, give us one of those little emojis with a heart that's holding a heart and snuggling it. You know, we like all that stuff. So give us a little bit of love. But yeah, and so I was kind of that being said, like I said, I kind of tried to squeeze in that nap right before this podcast. And that being said, I was kind of scrambling to get topics ready. I had a few of them there that were kind of on the radar and on the board to talk about, but I really didn't have anything established quite solidly until I got to this podcast. Hey, how's it going, Jim? Welcome, my friend. Good to have you. Just talking about some topics here I'm about to get into, and hopefully, as you all may know, I always have these tech problems going on, and more of recently, I don't know if it has something to do with the computer, but I'm constantly going through this tech issue with this computer right now, where I'm having a memory management issue. I'm trying to work out the kinks on that. It seems like it's just been a couple month long issue that's been tough to kind of work out the bugs in. So bear with me. But along with that, Restream, the platform that I use to project this podcast on in multiple different, channels at once, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube, it's been acting up too. And so it's been doing some funny stuff, especially because I have to share that platform or that software with running two podcasts, and so it's kind of been really weird. And this podcast and then my daughter's podcast, and so I'll run that podcast, and it kind of falls. Even when I change all the settings on it, it decides to post all that onto my Virus channel, and I'm trying to work all those kinks out. So it's pretty frustrating, and their customer service is kind of crap in my opinion. There's no one really there to kind of help you with that. Oh, by the way, I hate those customer services that are just automated messaging machines. You know what I mean? Where you hop on to try to help somebody, or you hop on to try to get some help rather, and a little icon pops up and says, "Hi, how may I help you?" And you're talking to them. You're talking to this robot person, this AI, and they're just like, need some help with this, and then they shoot up a list of suggested problems that you're trying to narrow down what your problem is and how they can automatically help you. And it never helps. It rarely ever helps in my experience. Nothing does a better job than actually communicating with somebody, even if it's through a message, just having them walk through a problem with you and really just narrowing down what specifically is going on and what needs to happen is the best efficient way to actually solve a problem. So how annoying is that? But yeah, let's get into this here really quick here. Let me sip on the tea here. Oh man, that's good tea. Got me some more of that local Olympia tea here from a locally sourced company, and man, I don't know, that one's really good. So taking a good liking to that one. So let's just get right into it. Like I said, I got some topics that I kind of squeezed in here, and I want to get somebody's thoughts, and at the very least, I want to air it out and give you my thoughts on this and what I think. And so the contagious combo for today, in light of me trying to squeeze in a nap right before this podcast and being all kind of, I guess, groggy and cobwebbed out in the brain, I noticed that I did not want to do this podcast right now, just because I was tired, and more importantly, I have a lot of things that need to be taken care of. And so yeah, it kind of was getting to me that I need this 2 hours of time to actually put into the business, because I got a lot of things. I got a 2-page checklist that I need to be chipping away at. And I just constantly stay up till 1, 2 in the morning trying to grind at this, because that is my most productive time. I found out in my life, the way it's structured. As a single dad, it's extremely hard to find time to run a business and run podcasts and do a full-time a band gig as well. So in order for me to actually be productive and stay productive on all these things, and more importantly on my business that's actually generating revenue to keep my life going and pay the bills, I found that my most productive time is at night, late at night, because that is where people don't require any attention from me. It's nice and quiet. I can, really grind on the things. I can get in a zone here. I can sit up here, the lights off, and some neon lights going and some chill music going. And it's just a real productive vibe and a mood for me. And more importantly, no one's just requiring any attention for me. And so I don't feel rushed. I don't feel like there's something that's got to happen immediately. Whereas when I used to do it, for a while there, I was getting up at like 4 or 4:30 in the morning. And that was pretty productive too. But I still found myself rushing, especially during school. It's easier to do that during the summer because the sun comes up at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And so I found out I'm still being rushed, because if I get up at 4:30, it takes me an hour to get ready. Now I'm at 5:30, and now I really only have about an hour, if that, to kind of squeeze in some productive time. And when there's a real small amount of time to squeeze in production, the production most times it just gets rushed, and definitely the quality will kind of go down. But it's just that vibe, that pressure of trying to get something done before you have to do something else, and that being me getting up in my scenario, getting up, getting my daughter ready, getting her ready for school. That takes a good hour and a half to get her prepped out, get the breakfast going, get everything ready, walk her to school, and then by that time it's 8 o'clock, and like the momentum's kind of already been established, and it's just like, okay, now what was I doing? It's kind of hard to get back into the groove after you've been derailed for an hour and a half straight. And so I found out, just the way my lifestyle is, that I'm just way more productive at night, because and I feel almost bad sometimes. It's like I'm in a rush to get her to bed at 9 o'clock on the dot, because as soon as she's in bed, it's go time for me to get productive for 3 hours straight, and sometimes 4 hours straight. Problem with that is it doesn't leave me much time to just wind down, and so I have to literally force myself sometimes at 12:30 to just stop what I'm doing, go down there, maybe squeeze in half hour of Netflix. At that point, I'm literally just falling asleep on my couch, and I'm like, okay, I got to get to bed, because I don't know what it is, but I hated just working up to the point to where I have to go to bed right after that. I did that plenty of times too. But I found that it's hard to wind down. I just wake up and I'm still wound up, go to bed, still wound up. There's just no downtime. Even if I have 30 minutes at least of just winding down, it kind of helps a little bit. Yeah, Jim, you were saying you do your stuff when you can block everything out, usually late at night. Yeah, so it sounds like you kind of structure your production time the same way as I do, is late at night. And I imagine it's the same reason as me, is because nobody's requiring your attention, And that's what kind of gets the angst going, when somebody, just multiple people are requiring your attention, phones going off, kids are getting a hold of you, people are getting a hold of you. It's just a constant, people are just hitting you from different angles. They just require your attention all the time. And so that's my life. And so, and exactly, no text or no phone. And so in order for me, sometimes during the day when I got to get productive, I got to silence my phone sometimes. But the problem I'm the business owner. I can't really do that, because there's a lot of emergencies that could come up that that's the thing about me, is I like putting out fires as soon as they come up. I really don't like procrastinating anything. So that's part of the reason why I get derailed so easy, is because when things come up, I'm on it. If there's a problem, I'm on it. And so sometimes that requires me making a phone call. Sometimes that requires me getting in the truck and heading out somewhere. And so that being said, I'm easily derailed because I'm just so prompt with addressing issues, addressing things that need to be addressed immediately. Because if I let things go and snowball and build up, the pressure really gets built up. And so I don't have the ability to do that. My schedule is structured to where I need to be knocking things out and knocking things down as soon as they come up in my life. So yeah, sometimes you say you do it 5 a.m. too. Yeah, see, and I wish I could, because I'm more productive early in the morning, in my opinion. It's a little bit harder for me to be productive. I say that my most production happens late at night, but that's because no one's requiring my attention. I'm most productive early in the morning, though. And so I'm in a real contradiction there, which really sucks. And the reason why I can't be as productive in the morning is because, like I said, I get up, if I got up at 4:30 like I was doing there for a while, it takes me an hour to get ready with the shower and the breakfast and brush my teeth. Then I'm done at 5:30. Now I only got an hour less than that. I wake up and at 5 or 6:15. And so that only gives me 45 minutes to try to squeeze in stuff. If I wasn't a single dad, I could easily be productive, because then I don't have to worry about, if I had a teammate, a partner, someone that could actually help me get my daughter ready and things like that, then it would definitely take a lot of stress and pressure off of me. But that's just the life of a single dad. You gotta get things going, and everything falls on me. So the way my life is structured, I'm forced to have to make my productive time at night, and therefore it is my most productive time. But it's not where I am most productive at. So just the life I have to, you know, I have to structure my life that way. It's just the way it is. Yeah, soon she will be able to. Yeah, you know, I will. She's 8 years old now. I don't know what age that's going to be, but there's definitely going to have to be a transition to where she's going to have to start getting herself completely ready. I mean, it's still not going to stop the fact. It's still going to require my attention. You know what I mean? Unless she's completely able to. I mean, obviously, when she doesn't need walk to school, then yeah, I will be able to be productive constantly in the morning, where I'm not going to be derailed as much. She's going to be able to get herself in the shower, brush, eat her breakfast, brush her own teeth, comb her hair, get all her things that she needs for school, and then either walk to school or drive to school. And then, yeah, that will definitely help a lot. She will need her attention too. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to deny my daughter her attention. That's the thing. I feel bad just the amount that I do have to already. So I'm pretty good at making sure that I carve out time to give my daughter one-on-one attention. And then that's also why I really enjoy doing the podcast with her, because it carves out a very stable and structured time that me and her have together. Even though it's just an hour 1 week, it's still something that we do every week. It's something we both look forward to. It's something we both can talk and review things. We read a book during that. We really just have and we have it's a good enjoyment that we both get, and something we can count on every week. So that's why I really like that podcast as well. So yeah. Anyways, the reason why I was bringing that up was because I kind of derailed there, but I wanted to talk about how I did not want to do this podcast, and I forced myself to do this because I am very big on consistency. You know what I mean? I'm huge on consistency, and I'm huge on volume. Anything I do, I want to do it a lot. I want to do it frequently, and I want to be counted on to do these things. Even if there's not, a ton of people that can, carve out the time to be on this podcast, because they're busy or whatever. Which, by the way, busy is a very loose term that people like to hide behind as well. There's a lot of people that say they're busy. They're not busy. At least their version of busy is not what my version of busy is. And so that's a whole topic in itself. Matter of fact, I'm gonna write that down because that's something I could definitely talk about at another time. But consistency is the biggest thing, and that's it. That's the reason why I kind of doubled down today. I was exactly busy being busy, and that looks different for everybody, right? Busy playing games, busy watching Netflix, right? Busy smoking weed, or busy whatever, you know what I mean? Hanging out with the boys or the girls. So yeah, we get what busy means for a lot of people. So the consistency was the biggest thing. And so consistency through doing things you don't want to do is very important to me as well. Being consistent involves doing something you don't want to do a lot of times. Maybe not even, and if it's not a lot of times, it's definitely at times. And I'm using today as an example. I didn't want to do this podcast, but there was things that, the consistency part is something I focus on. So when I did do that, I just made it happen. I was like, okay, since I'm, there's things that kind of deterred me and were discouraging me. I was like, usually I'm pretty good about having topics already ready. I didn't. And so these combination of things, me trying to squeeze in a nap because I'm being old right before the podcast, and then the lack of getting stuff prepped kind of discouraged me. And I was like, you know what? And you start talking yourself into these things. I really just analyzed my brain in the last hour about how myself was, my my subconscious was really trying to just talk myself into why I don't need to do a podcast, right? I'm just like, the things I was telling myself was like, this is my podcast. I can do whatever I want. I have no obligation to do that. It'll be fine. Let's just skip one podcast. It'll be fine. You can actually get a lot done in those 2 hours. If you don't do those podcasts, you can really, start chipping away at that list that I need to work on. So yeah, my subconscious is definitely battling with what I know needs to be done. I got this voice, and I'm not like I'm crazy or anything, but I got this voice telling me, you should be doing this for consistency and volume reasons, and just to make, this is something you set out to do, so do it. And then the other side of me is battling the back of, the subconscious. Those thoughts in the back of my head are trying to talk me out of this, give me reasons why I don't need to, why it's okay. It's okay. And we all battle with these moments in many different times, and many different times for sure, but many different scenarios in our life, in our day. We have this battle multiple times in just a day. A lot of us don't really pay attention to it, and a lot of us might not even know it, but we really bow down to the mercy of the voice that's talking us out of things and justifying reasons why we should not do something or should do something. And so I think there's a huge growth process when you actually acknowledge what's going on with those conversations with yourself, and you really can identify the negative part of that. Exactly, of that self-talk that you're talking about there. There's a huge empowerment when you can actually acknowledge that, identify that in yourself. Like, the part of your brain that's trying to talk you out of something you should not be doing, or that you should be doing, rather. Right? You should be doing something, and then you got this voice of yours trying to talk you out of not doing something that you should be doing. When you acknowledge that and you can really just identify, I think it's just huge, and that's like a game changer. It really will steer you in the right direction, because first you got to acknowledge it. Once you do, now you can make a true decision. And the decision really comes down to, am I going to power through these shitty thoughts and really just do what I know needs to be done? And now that you are presented with those two options, what are you going to do? It's very easy to go down the negative path and listen to that voice that's trying to talk you, that comfortable voice, the voice that's really taking you towards the path of least resistance, that voice that's taking you down the road that everybody goes down, which is the same voice that is a mediocre voice, the normalcy, the very easy path for people that the majority of us take. I think it's so important to resist that part of your mentality, in my opinion. There's no growth in that comfort. So it just is all real relative. But yeah, I thought that was important, because I just literally I go through this a lot, and I just literally went through it in the last hour prior to this. You were saying dad self-talks a lot, Jim. And then sometimes you have to prioritize things. Yeah, exactly. I definitely prioritize things. And then you said you also, at least you do not answer yourself. Oh, Philip, you were saying your dad. What's up, Philip? I didn't even realize you guys got the same last name. I just automatically seen that was I thought that was Jim. So yeah, good to see you, man. Or good to hear you, rather. Good to see your chat. There we go. Yeah, dude, that self-talk, it's funny because when you're a kid, you see your parents doing that self-talk, and it's like, you make fun of them. You're like, okay, dad's talking to himself again, or mom's talking to himself again. My mom did it all the time. My mom self-talks quite a bit. And I find that, God, in the last 5+ years, I've been doing a lot of self-talk. I guess voicing out loud my self-talk, rather. I think we all have self-talk. Matter of fact, speaking of self-talk, that self-talk is important, because now what I'm talking about is on another layer of this conversation when I'm saying, avoiding that negative talk, the comfortable voices trying to talk you out of doing something. A guy that I pay attention to a lot who talks about this is David Goggins, and he talks about the self-dialogue, or the internal dialogue, as he calls it, that you have with yourself is really huge. And I totally believe that. I'm a firm believer of the internal dialogue that he's referring to is a big factor on making good decisions, making beneficial decisions, making productive decisions, and making decisions that are going to grow your mentality. And so I think it's real good for people to just stop and take a look at what type of self-talk you're actually having with yourself. And with those two voices that are going on in your head, you got this one voice that's kind of telling you what you should be doing, what you need to be doing. You got those other voices like, okay, you don't really need to do that, and it's trying to talk you out of it and give you reasons why you don't need to do it and why you shouldn't do it. I think it's very important to take a look at those voices, which one you need to pay attention to, and kind of reformat, because you can totally reformat your self-talk to yourself by the type of content you consume. And so this is, whether you pay attention to somebody on social media, whether you watch YouTube videos, whether you watch TV, the type of content you consume is a huge factor in what your self-talk is looking like. And so I'm a huge, big time advocate in promoting, I think Gary Vee also said this, you need to have a balancing act and pay attention to how much content you consume versus how much content you create. And I did a podcast on this many episodes back where I asked you guys or viewers to take a look at what your percentage is, your consumption rate versus content and creating rate is. Is your content creation part of your life overwhelming the consumption, or is the consumption overwhelming that? I think for a lot of us, we consume way more than we actually create. And sometimes I'm guilty of this lately too, but I basically am I focus on, I kind of got a rule ever since I've kind of heard that thing by Gary Vee. I make it a rule that I should be creating a certain amount, and whatever it is, 5 posts, 10 posts, pictures, content creating or content projecting. I do that before I consume anything, whether I just start feed scrolling or looking at stuff. I want to make sure that I'm actually creating something before I just consume, because it's very easy to get in that world of consuming. And the way social media is designed, it just gets you, it grabs you. And then, you got the algorithms that are involved in that, where they target you, they retarget you with products. That's how I sell a lot of products as well. They're just, the consumption part is really targeted, and it's so geared towards social media on Facebook and Instagram particularly. And so, I don't know, I made that rule for myself. And again, just being aware of those two things is going to help individual that I think be more productive and just actually have some more to really value their time a little bit more. Because you can find yourself, we've all been guilty of this, you can find yourself on social media, next thing you know, an hour's gone by and you've just scrolled through a bunch of bullshit and you just wasted your time completely and got nothing out of it except for just consuming stuff. It's just like TV, just like sitting there watching Netflix, for a couple hours. And so we sit there and we consume, and then a lot of us out there, we complain about things that we don't have, about things that are unjust. We complain about things that we act like are out of our hands, but then we sit there and consume a bunch of shit when that consumption time could be put towards your goals and getting out of the situation that you actually have created for yourself that you're complaining about. And so it's a funny thing, you know what I mean? Like that victim mentality that people just, and boy, are we in a world of victims waiting to happen now. It's just amplified now, especially with the woke community. Don't get me started on that again. That's a whole nother topic that we can revisit again. But the woke community, that's what they do. They have structured their life to where they're seeking out things to be offended by and looking for things to be offended by, even when it's not even there. And so that's another topic in itself. But the victim mentality has gone down a dangerous, unproductive path, in my opinion. And so it's created this whole movement now where if you're not fucking woke enough, you're just getting canceled these days. Hey, what's up, Roland? Good to have you, my friend. You were saying you support and applaud your entrepreneurship and want to get myself in a position in life that is outside of the realm and reality and structure people box themselves into. Dude, that's really fucking huge. Hey, I appreciate the compliments too, man. That actually means a lot to me. I've put a lot of work into my life in the last 5 years, and more particularly have doubled down in the last 3 years. And so I really appreciate that, man. And I'm glad you noticed some things about me. You know me for a long time, so you can definitely notice some differences. But that's awesome, dude. I like hearing that. I like that you've really changed. It seems like you're looking for ways to change the normal part of thinking, the what would you call that? The social expectations of thinking, the very structured way of the society has brought us up to just, you know, fall in line, be normal, do the things that is expected of you. It sounds like that you're kind of looking for ways to challenge yourself and get out of that. And that's huge, dude. I'm gonna tell you right now, as soon as you go down that path, or if you've already done that, you might already notice that things are gonna start changing for you for the better. It's such a great liberating feeling, and it's such a growth process. You know what I mean? When you start looking for ways to expand your mentality and just grow and be so much different than the normal people are actually, you know, going towards. It's a lazy mentality in general. So putting that work, putting that effort in to do that is going to pay off for you, my friend. And I'm glad to hear that you're going to do that, dude. And so, you know, Philip, you're saying my consuming usually has a purpose, like watching videos to see how people do things so I can do it. Yeah, exactly, dude. And so that's another thing. If you are going to consume, so that's kind of technically a creating part, because if you're using consumption to actually apply towards your creative self, that is part in part that ends up being a creative part of that ratio. So exactly, consuming stuff that is of no value and consuming stuff that actually benefits your creative process is huge and a big difference. And so I'm glad you said that, because like for instance, a lot of the things that I've been consuming lately is taxes, because I'm very interested in taxes and playing that game now. Matter of fact, that's going to be a whole topic on another episode as well, because it's something I've been wrapping my head around. It's because I went from being a sole proprietor to an S Corp LLC now. And so I'm looking for ways to play the game that rich people have been playing, to basically be smart about running businesses and keep those taxes low and be taxed at a lower rate. This is exactly why rich people stay rich and why they're taxed at a lower rate. You might have heard, you know, Trump, when they exposed his taxes, that he only paid $750 for his taxes or something like that. And he's, you know, a millionaire, billionaire, whatever. And so there's a lot to it. And so I'll sit there and consume. There's a one channel I decided to designate, and I'm just learning taxes. I'm learning all these layers of things about an S Corp now that I never knew about. How to you know, because now as an S corp, I'm technically the president of my own company that I own, but really I'm an employee of the company. And so now I got to I write myself a salary every month, and then I write myself a draw that's taxed at a different rate. And so I got to figure out what percentages to pay myself at a salary to basically not draw any unwanted attention to me, if you will. So there's all kinds of shit. There's all kinds of stuff in this that you need to do. You know, operating agreements, consent to action forms, all these little things I'm starting to learn about. And that's exactly what you're talking about, is just consuming content that's going to contribute. And so I'll watch those videos. I'll also watch videos about this channel that's really addictive, actually. It's called Active Self-Protection, and it's basically about self-defense. And whether it's actual physical self-defense or actually using a firearm in self-defense. This guy, if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's very, very interesting and very cool. But he'll watch a video of, you know, all these scenarios, you know, guys being attacked by dogs, people being robbed at gunpoint in many scenarios in many different transitional spaces. And he'll break down the video and talk about what would have been the best thing to do, why you don't do these things, why you do these things, what needs to be focused on, what's very important. And it's all, I enjoy it because I'm a new gun owner, and the whole reason why I got a pistol recently was for self-defense. And so I'm watching all those type of stuff because it's intriguing, and it's educating me on these things that I should be aware of. But yeah, man, that's a great point you said that, because consuming things that are going to help your creative side and help you grow mentally. I mean, especially if you're good. I mean, I'm the type of person that takes notes. And so you'll see, I mean, I got like 5 of these sitting downstairs, all for different things. And so I'll always take notes because I need to. There's so much information and so many different topics that it needs to be written down. Otherwise, and for not only that, I learned that it's just a fact that if you write things down, it's going to really stick in your head, and you'll be able to retain things a lot more. Because I think it's something crazy like 75% of what you have heard is going to be forgotten within 24 hours. And then within 3 days, I think it's like 95% of whatever you heard is going to be completely forgotten. And so I'm very aware of these things and how the brain kind of normally works on average. And so, yeah, I got to outsmart my own brain and bypass that stuff. But you were saying, you just watched a video about a car dealership owner buying himself a new truck and use it for business purposes so he can write it off. Funny the benefits business owners get when it comes to taxes. Yeah, exactly, dude. There's a bunch when it comes to taxes is a whole new world. It really is. And so I found out the hard way that being a sole proprietor for 3 straight years, for lack of better words, fucked me. I was getting taxed at the highest rate. I wasn't doing the proper write-offs. I really screwed myself and was just, getting hit with, owing $15,000 at the end of the year or more every year. And that's a bitch. That's a devastating hit at the end of the year. You know what I mean? You take all your profit and you're like, what? I owe $15,000? And you're scratching your head. It's like, why? Why do I'm providing jobs. I am providing money to the government. I'm paying taxes. Like, I don't understand that. And so, it prompted me to take a closer look at what I need to be doing to be smarter about it. And so I've taken that step, and now I'm just going to educate myself and dive deep, do a deep fucking dive into the tax world. And you say you take notes, Jim, you say you take notes to remember also when you need to refer. Yeah, exactly, man. So it's great, especially when you're really obsessed with something. I think it's very important to take notes, because then you can refer to those bullet points that you were just talking about. Philip, you were saying it sounds like I need an accountant. I have an accountant, my friend. I've had an accountant for a couple of years. But here's the thing. An accountant doesn't know all of the tax benefits. It's very rare. I'm finding this out too. through my mentor. You know what I mean? Like I have a mentor that also teaches me about taxes and all these things. And he's a real estate guy. So eventually I want to get into real estate. And so I need to learn a lot about these taxes because it's different for each trade. And so in each industry, all the taxes are going to apply to me in this construction world are going to be much different once I actually get involved in the real estate game. And it's much different in the real estate game. You know what I mean? If you're involved in just single family living real estate, the taxes are much different in there. If you're a multi-family unit investing, it's much different. And so I'm trying to get my head wrapped around all these things. But yeah, to your point, my accountant, I found out through just watching videos and listening to my mentor, like they don't know. They just know the basics of taxes. They're not invested or incentivized to look to save you money. It's really your own job. And I found that out. I mean, she's definitely doing the majority of they'll definitely help, you know what I mean? And they'll do a lot of the work for me. They do my payroll. And now they'll do my Department of Revenue taxes and my taxes at the end of the year. She's definitely doing all the things that I need her to do so that I can get involved in this a little bit more. But ultimately, the taxes, as far as all the tax benefits go, I think a person needs to really dive deep into that to understand it, because there's nobody else that's going to look after yourself more than you are. And so something to keep in mind if you ever get a CPA or any kind of accountant, just realize that they're not the godsend. They're not going to save. They're not an end all be all type thing. They're still not going to. And I found this out through my own experience. My CPA, I asked her, as soon as I became an S Corp, in the beginning of January, I was talking to her about these things. You know what I mean? I was like, what's that mean for my taxes? Am I going to be able to actually, not have to pay or pay little, or, how is this going to be structured? And, her response to me was like, well, it doesn't really change that much. Not true, man. I found out that it changes a lot depending on how you structure your payment arrangement, all those things I was talking about, especially in an S Corp. There's things that you can do, whether, you structure the part of your salary to be a portion, and then the distributions to be another portion, and then the draws to be a portion. And so just so much involved that they're not going to get involved because it's not their business. It's not their life. They're getting paid regardless. And so there's no incentive for them to look to save you pennies. And so, I'm excited to actually get involved in that, because I realize that's what the game changer is for a lot of people that are actually being successful at making money and paying less taxes. Tax laws change from year to year too. Yeah, exactly. Kind of like, for instance, the capital gains tax is turning into an income tax. That was something I don't think that was structured that way in previous years. It was just a capital gains tax. You paid a capital gains tax, and so now that it's structured as an income tax, it's probably getting taxed at a higher rate, I imagine. Any income tax is getting taxed at a higher rate. And so what you want to look to do, and from what I've been taught, is keep that income tax low, keep that income low so that you're not paying at the highest rate of being taxed. You want to stay down there in that 15% of being taxed, rather than 29, 30% or even more of being taxed. That's over half the amount. So it really adds up when you think about that level. Because the government, they will literally rape you on taxes. I mean, that's the name of their game. All right. But yeah, I got sidetracked there. The whole reason I got on that tangent was the contagious combo, is being just back to consistency. All right. I force myself to do things I don't like, and that's something that's been benefiting me in my life. And a lot of people, I think, look for that path of least resistance and look for the easy way, and look for that way that everybody usually goes and gets real nice and comfy, because there's no pressure in that. there's no pressure. But in reality, it ends up being pressure. In one form or another, it'll always come back to bite you. If you look for the path of least resistance, that pressure is going to present itself, and basically you're trying to hide. When you look for that path of least resistance, you're trying to hide. You're trying to stay away. You're trying to avoid things. But the reality is the things you're trying to hide from and the things you're trying to avoid will find you. They will find your ass, and they will expose you, and they will put you to the test. And so going after it and being prepared is what has been helping me. And I'm going to keep continuing to do that. And that involves doing things that I don't want to do. I don't care if I'm not in the mood for it. I'm not up for it. Whatever. I'm tired. All these excuses. There's just a laundry list of things you can tell yourself as to why you shouldn't be doing something or why you don't want to do something. I go against that. And so I have these battles with myself all the time. So I would encourage people to do that as well and spread that message, because that's where the growth is really at. All right. Well, that's pretty much it for the Contagious Convo, and that turned out to be actually a good thing to talk about, and that was all on a whim. I just used that topic just for the last hour of referencing my own thought process in my life prior to doing this episode of this podcast. So great things to talk about. I love having conversations like that. Let me go into the review section here before I get into the viral viewpoint topics. And so let's talk about, a couple things I'm going to review here. I'm going to review this drone setup I got here. And then one thing I wanted to review was, I don't know if you guys got into the Chappelle Show when that was out on Comedy Central. I did hear that Dave Chappelle is going to fire up a season of the Chappelle Show again. So I think that's pretty cool. I think I need a little bit more comedy in my life. It's not regular. The only comedy I get is just hanging out with the buds, hanging out with the bandmates. We have a good time. We loosen up a little bit, even though we're definitely real dedicated to working hard and grinding and producing. We also lighten it up and have a good time with it. So, but I need more of that in my life, whether it's taking that half hour of Netflix time at the end of my night, like I said, and watching something that's funny. I just need that in my life. You know what I mean? It's easy for me to kind of get real sucked into the seriousness of things. And so I kind of don't like that about myself, but it's definitely worked for me. But I also enjoy being happy, or not happy. I enjoy laughing, and I enjoy comedy and looking at things in a funny angle just to lighten things up. And it's creative too, the way people are being funny creatively. I love that. That being said, Dave Chappelle, if you guys ever watched that, I thought he had some, oh my God, it's sketch comedy. And I thought the sketch comedy that he did was very cool and creative and hilarious. There's some highly offensive sketches in there too, which in my opinion got him the notoriety. I mean, he was already pretty famous prior to that, but that's what gave him that staple of being a real funny comedian and being able to do that kind of sketch comedy. You know, whether it was the Clayton Bigsby episode and that sketch comedy, whether it was the Rick James sketch comedies, whether it's the Prince sketch comedy. Oh my God, those were all freaking hilarious. So can't wait when he puts that out, because I definitely want to check it out. I want to see where his head's at now. He's a lot wiser now. He's a lot older, and I think he's just got some creative stuff. So, and a lot of good writers got behind him on Comedy Central. So I think I'm pretty excited. So we'll keep our eyes out for that, and we'll start doing some reviews on those episodes when we get to it. But real quick here, let's go ahead and talk about drones. These drones, all right? It's this is be my review section now. What we got here is the let me take this sticker off here. Don't know why that's still on there. Okay. What we got here is two different drones. We got the GoPro Karma over here. We got the DJI Mavic Air 2. And as you know out there is a plethora of drones nowadays. You got cheap drones, you got expensive drones. And then you got all in between there. I mean, there's so many different types of drones. I've seen them advertising drones that will go in the water and come out and fly, do all kinds of cool things. There's a lot of different options out there. I'm just going to give you my opinion on these two drones because it's the only two drones I've ever owned. So starting off here with the GoPro Karma. This is the first drone I bought. This is the first one I started using. The reason, I'll just give you my opinion of it right off. I think this drone sucks, in my opinion. Matter of fact, I think they discontinued this drone and they don't even make it because of a lot of problems. And so I've wrecked this drone 4 times, I think. And usually it's taken a good, it's pretty tough. You know, the only thing that usually happens is that the propellers will break, as you can see. All the other ones are missing because I most recently was using it to get some footage on a job and I wrecked it. One of the reasons why I don't like it, the reason it wrecked was because it has a very hard time locking in a GPS signal. Now, if you're not familiar, these drones need to lock in the GPS signal to lock in their flight control. So unless they do, it'll start swaying in the wind will start taking it, and then you're sitting there trying to control it by looking at it, and it just gets really tough to control that sucker. And so that's why I wrecked it, because I thought I had, you know, when I was running some settings on it, I had all these points on the cable cam locked in, and normally when the GPS signal is lost, it'll cancel out all of the locations you just preset on there. Well, it didn't do that, and I thought I still had it. I did notice the GPS was not activated or located, and so I hit go on the settings, and all the locations that I sent, it didn't even follow. It just went, just took a dive right into the tree. And I was like, wow, that's very inefficient. And so that's the biggest thing I hated about this. I also struggled with that when I went to, we did a huge job on top of a roof of, you know, like a $50 million hotel in the Redmond, Washington Archer Hotel. And it was just this massive 24-foot long by 24-foot projection patio covers for a parking lot on top of this building. And so I went to go do some flight, some pictures on that, and the GPS was not being located. So I'm sitting there trying to fly this on this rooftop in this area where we just built this structure. There's posts, there's all kinds of things in the way, and I'm trying to avoid it because the GPS wasn't locked. And so what I had to do was take a chance, just shoot it up in the air, right? As soon as I launched it, just avoided the obstructions, went straight up in the air to lock in that signal in the air, which is not an ideal way to do it. But I did it, and that's how I was able to actually get those fantastic shots on that location. But I don't want to ever have to deal with that again. I did a lot of reviews on this one, which I'll get into here in a second. And apparently those GPS, what was I going to say? Sorry, I got distracted by the messenger. Those GPS statistics and reviews were really good. The guy that I was watching that did a review on the DJI Mavic 2 specifically said that he's never lost a signal. And so that's what attracted me to that, because I don't want to ever have to deal with that again. Now, the cool thing about the GoPro, what really attracted me to this was it has some cool features to it. Unfortunately, where you're saying, Jim, you're saying Phil lost one in the wind. We still do not know where it went. Maybe to Mars. Exactly. And the reason you lost it in the wind is because it didn't lock in the GPS, and that's the quality of the drone. It needs to be able to lock in the GPS. Otherwise, the exact same thing is going to happen. It's just going to take it into Never Never Land. And so this drone was cool because it's a GoPro, and so you can take the GoPro in and out of this thing for many different reasons. Now, what really attracted me to this drone is it had a good idea. There were some cool things about it, but it had flaws, big time flaws. The GPS signal is one of them. It just had some other things going on where it just wouldn't cooperate. But the cool thing was you can take the gimbal off right out of the drone, and you can put it into this stabilizer, and now you can walk around and do some walking videos on the gimbal. And so that was really cool. That was a selling point for me, actually. That's the reason why I did that, because what I'll do is take this sucker out to a job site, get a ton of aerial footage. Once I'm done with that, pop it off onto the gimbal here and start doing a walkthrough and doing a smooth walkthrough of the footage on that. And so now I've got aerial views, ground footage, all in one sitting. So that was the cool thing about this. I thought that was the best feature about it. But again, the drone itself is very shitty. It was very bad. And so that being said, that's why they discontinued it. That's why I'm not a fan of it. That's why I wrecked it so many times. Just real disappointing. You know what I mean? So that's that. I've moved on. That I'll still use it probably for the well, not only that, GoPro has a app that you can edit as well. So as soon as you're done getting all this footage, you can go to the editing app. And so that was kind of cool to have it all just in one manufacturer setup. So that was cool. It had some cool things, but it came up short on the actual drone. Great camera, great gimbal, great things, bad drone. So that's my review for the GoPro Karma, and I have moved on. I hate that thing now. Never again. But now I got myself this bad boy. Haven't even taken it up into the air yet, so I can't even give you an honest review of it yet, but I will say I'm getting real excited. Now, the first thing to notice is the size difference. How am I going to do this? First thing you might notice is the size. It's, I mean, almost half the size. The body is definitely way smaller than this one. It's probably less than half the size of it. So that's the first thing you'll notice about that drone, which I like. In my opinion, smaller is always better. I mean, that's definitely not what most people would think, but when it comes to electronics and certain things, smaller is better. Compact is really is better, you know, in my opinion. This feels so light. It just looks better. It's got its own built-in camera, so it's not like the GoPro. It's much different. This camera has really good settings on it. And so the quality, I did a lot of research, you know, with the Mavic Pro, the DJI Mavic, the first one. And so this had really good reviews on it. And more importantly, the GPS will always be available. So that I'm very happy about. Let me fix this real quick. Okay. And so that is not what she said, right? All right. I was refraining from saying that, but you got to it. That's funny, Jim. And so, yeah, I'm real excited about this thing. It's a little bit different. The propeller's a little bit loose. They fold. Camera's real well. Nice and compact. GPS locks in. Now, what I'm going to have to do from now on in my editing is I'm going to have to take my videos and you can stick a micro SD in this thing. That's really cool. It's got a slot there for a micro SD. What else has it got here? It's got a USB-C port too, and I don't know why that is. I'm thinking maybe if you got the micro SD in there and you take the USB-C right into there, you might not even have to get a USB or a SD card to put the micro SD into to get in your computer. You might be able to just plug this right into the computer, just keep it all in there to pull the video right off of it, and then start doing your editing on your software from there. But that's what I'm gonna have to do. I already work with Adobe Premiere, and so which is the editing software, really good, by the way. A lot of things to wrap your head around on that program, but that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take all my good look. Now the flight ability of this is going to be much more superior to that, because like I said, GoPro is good. They should stick to cameras. They should have not have made a drone. I know what they were trying to do was a good idea, but they just weren't able to execute on it. So they just need to stick to what they're good at, which is GoPro videos. This is meant for drone flight, excellent drone flight. And so I'm gonna take those nice footage, photos rather, and stick them on Adobe Premiere, and I'll be able to start editing, and hopefully it's just going to be a game changer for me. But yeah, here's my complaint about this though. So I just bought this. They don't say, here's the other thing. This is also why I like the GoPro Karma. It's got its own controller rather than having to use your phone. All right. That's why I went with the GoPro Karma. So again, they had really good ideas, but weren't able to actually complete it with a good drone. This is cool. I don't personally like to have my phone attached to the controller. For one, I have a case, you know what I mean? Like, my daughter has my phone. So I have an OtterBox case, and it's a pain in the ass to get that case off, and you have to get the case off for it to fit in any of those controllers. I don't want to have to do that every time. So it's nice to have your own designated controller for the drone. That way it's all just one contained package. That was cool. It already came with a really cool backpack kit for the GoPro Karma. So again, really cool setup, really cool ideas. With its own controller, it's nice backpack, the gimbal. Had some good things about it, which is what drew me to it and, sold me on it. Unfortunately, it's one of those things where you can't tell. I mean, you could do as many reviews as you want, but ultimately you're gonna have to make a decision and find out for yourself. And so, unfortunately, it came up short on that. I know now, but my complaint about the Mavic is when I bought this, they don't really talk to you much about controller options on there. So the standard controller is this guy. You pop this open, you stick your phone in there, and just like I said, you use your phone as a screen to operate this. You download the app, and then you sit there and control it. I'm not a fan of that. I already tried it. My phone does not fit in there. You have to take the case off, and if you've ever taken an OtterBox case off, pain in the ass every time. I do not want to have to do that. So I did a little research because they also don't come with a nice case, right? And so you can get a case. The cheapest case would be $40, $35, all the way up to a $200 fancy case that holds, looks nice. It's a hard case. It's got extra spots for batteries. You can really spend a variety of amount on the type of case you want. So when I was on there, I found out you can actually get a smart controller, which is, I guess, what you would call this. DJI makes a smart controller for these things to where you don't have to use these. Unfortunately, you can't buy the smart controller with it all at once, which is stupid. So they get you with that, right? They essentially make you buy this, and then you got to alternately buy the smart controller for it and then dish this out, which I'm sure then you just have this thing laying around. Now, oops, turned it on. Didn't want that. So I did buy it. That sucker was $700. Not cheap, all right? Because, that's how important it is for me, though. There we go. That's how important it is for me to not have to use my phone in a controller, though. It's $800 worth. So I bought the smart controller. I bought me a nice case. So now I'm pretty set up. I got that stuff coming in the mail. And yeah, I'm going to have to just get rid of this. I'm not going to use my phone. It'll be the setup that I have with the GoPro Karma, which I loved. Its own controller. And so, yeah, exactly, Jim. The controller being separate is very cool. And in my opinion, you should always have your own, units for itself, having to use your phone for this is ridiculous, and it's not very efficient. So I got the smart controller coming, I got the case coming, and I'm ready to rock. But that's the only complaint I would have with DJI is, like, you guys should have an option to pay a little bit more You know, and maybe not be $800 more, you know what I mean, or $700 more, whatever it is, because this was like $1,200 for the DJ Mavic Air 2. Is this Air 2? Yes, the DJI Mavic Air 2 was about $1,200, and then the smart controller is about $700. So we're two in the case. So I'm $2K into this project already. The GoPro Karma was about $1,000. All of it came together with it. So if DJI can make some kind of option where you can buy the smart controller with it already and maybe charge $500 extra, so now $1,700, and get a better case, guys. Like, I hate companies that do that, where they give you the bare minimum and get you on the upsell because they gave you the bare minimum. You know what I mean? Like, the case that came with it is just rinky dinky little plastic gym bag looking thing that I would never, anybody in the right mind would never put this in that case that came with it. You're asking for it to get damaged. So there's no spot to harness everything or holster everything. It's just free floating in this bag. And so they know what they're doing when they market this. And so that would be my complaint. Come up with a full package, especially no one wants to buy things separately. I want to buy something one time, get everything I need all at once, and be done with it. So that's my complaint with DJI. Other than that, though, I'm having good feelings about this and taking it up in the air. So once I do that, I will give you guys a review on my experience with the Mavics. Pretty excited about that. It's always fun getting a new drone, by the way. I don't know if you guys, if you guys ever fly drones, but it's addicting and it's fun and it's tough to get your head wrapped around the controls and stuff like that. But once you actually familiarize yourself with the controls and the settings, it's fun. It's cool, and it's just nice to get those crazy shots that you couldn't get with, by being on the ground with your phone or whatever. So, but anyways, I'll give you guys a review of that once I actually get to it. So let's see here. Let's get into the viral viewpoint. Let me sip on the tea really quick. You watched Phil, remember Mars, right? It was fun until that happened, right? That's no fun, doesn't sound like. And trust me, it's a shitty feeling once you wreck your drone. You're just like, no! Hopefully I never wreck that one, and hopefully I did all my wrecking and got out of my system with that GoPro, because this one's a lot nicer and I would hate to have to wreck this one. And it's smaller. It doesn't look like it's as much of a tank as that one is. That one was pretty much able to take an impact, it seemed like, and the worst of it that happened was the propellers would snap off and break, and you just buy new ones at that point. They do make stealth propellers for this thing, which I'll probably get too, which basically is going to make it quieter, so you won't hear it, you won't hear that buzzing. And so I'm pretty excited to get these accessories for it as well. He just got the thing and then poof, it was gone. That sucks, man. What I would recommend is, fortunately I live right next to my daughter's school, literally right next door. And there's a big soccer field, a huge field there for the kids they play in. And so I went out there, and it's just this wide open field that I just went out there and tested and started getting my head wrapped around. It was zipping on, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So you definitely want to practice a lot before you just take it into a tight space. Flying it in tight spaces, you're asking for some trouble unless you're a really skilled flyer. And so you gotta make sure you get your head wrapped around it before you just take it into action. Otherwise, yeah, poof, it's gone, just like you said. Well, hopefully it wasn't an expensive drone, Phil. Because yeah, that would be. Some people are smarter than others. But I think Phil's a smart guy, probably. He just Maybe he got anxious. Maybe I don't know. You tell us, Phil. Maybe you did actually take it out in a wide open area, and start practicing with it before you actually took it wherever you lost it at. I mean, things happen too, so I get it. All right. Let's get into the viral viewpoint now. This is a little bit. This is more of a perspective, and I want to get people's thoughts on this. I'll let you know what my thoughts have become on this. Basically, what I'm going to talk about is in reference to a quote that I heard Dan Lok say. It was like a $50 drone. That's probably half the reason why he lost it. It was a $50 drone. Yeah, I imagine it's not locking in that GPS signal, and that's probably why it got carried away in the wind. Because your drone, as soon as it goes up in the air, should just lock right in and stabilize in the air. And I didn't learn that until after the GoPro was not cooperating with the GPS lock. But yeah, if it's doing this, it's getting carried away. That means you don't have a GPS signal. You have no control over that thing, and you do not want to be in that position. Trying to free fly a drone with no control, no stability, that is the worst situation to be in. But that's why he lost it, because it just didn't have any. Because no matter how hard the wind is, even that GoPro, as shitty as that drone is, when it locked in the GPS, it stabilized. It stayed there. So it was a good drone when it actually would lock in the GPS. It just always struggled with locking in GPS, which is very unreliable. But yeah, they should always do that as soon as they find that GPS. It's nice, just even a hard wind, you can see it kind of working with the wind and compromising with it to stop. If the wind's coming from this side, you'll see it kind of tilt a little bit, and it'll stabilize that way automatically. And so the technology in these units are pretty sophisticated. This one actually has a built-in sensor on the wings here, so an anti-crash feature, I guess you would say. So if it senses it's going to hit a wall, it'll stop. So I'm really excited about that too. So I should never ever wreck this thing. With that being said, I think that's really cool, having a built-in sensor that's going to prevent it from actually running into something. It's kind of like the Tesla of drones, right? It is one of the better drone, one of the most popular drone manufacturers out there. Phil, give me $50 for the old one. There you go. Oh man, I wouldn't recommend that, man. If you're gonna get a drone, you can at least get the DJI Mavic Mini, which is like, I think it's like $400. You know what I mean? It's not that expensive, and I think that is even pretty good. I think the camera's not as good as this one, but I mean, for the average guy, if you're just trying to have fun with it, have some good solid pictures, I think it's still got some good picture quality. That's pretty good deal. A $400 drone unit that's reliable. I imagine the GPS is very well locked in and stabilized. So I would recommend, if you ever get a drone again, you don't want to go cheap. You don't, anything less than $400 is just not going to be a good drone. That's a toy. You got toys, and then you got drones. And so having a toy is gonna, you can expect what you get out of a toy. Having an actual sophisticated drone is gonna be much more reliable, and you're gonna actually enjoy it. You're gonna take care of it a little bit more too. But yeah, so getting into the viral viewpoint, if you don't know who Dan Lok is, he's this guy that's also, he focuses a lot about self-improvement. He's one of Dan Pena's mentees. If you don't know who Dan Pena is, he's also this very aggressive self-improvement guy, very harsh. I like the individual. I like Dan Pena a lot, but he rubs me the wrong way sometimes. But I do I like his approach. I like his very aggressive approach to get people to wake up. It works for me. Maybe it's because I didn't really have a dad around, but he's like, you know, the way he speaks, it kind of it wakes me up and gets me in that go mode. You know what I mean? And he's very offensive, very offensive. But yeah, Dan Lok is one of his mentees, and he comes from the copyright world, who now has made a business and a huge following on self-improvement and just doing that and doing speeches and things like that. He's also, you know, I'm not a huge fan of Dan Lok, but he's got some valuable content. There's some things that, the thing I like about Dan Lok is he puts a lot of free content out there. And so I like individuals who do that, because you don't, I mean, of course they also pitch their product, but for the most part, he provides a lot of free value on his YouTube channel, Facebook channel. And so you can learn a lot just from watching their stuff for free. And so I like people that are, you know, mentors that do that, because they provide that value first and then will ask you for something in return. Or they'll give you the option to, like, hey, if you want to be a part of this, you should be a part of this. You know, it's only whatever, $59.95 a month, whatever. But yeah, he's got some cool things, a lot of things that I've picked up a lot of stuff from individuals. Dan Pena, Oren Klaff, Dan Lok, Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, David Goggins. There's Chris Crone. A lot of people, I don't follow all of them with everything they say, because then it would just be overwhelming. But I do hear things that really apply to me in my life, or that I feel like would apply, and I implement them. And if it works, I continue to do it. One of the things Dan Lok that I used was, you know, his approach to his pitch. One of his pitches, the structure of it, I implemented into my pitch deck, and it worked. And so I got value out of that. And so that was really beneficial, and that was really cool. And so I appreciate that out of people who throw that free content out there for you to just, you know, choose to use and see if it works for you. And that's why I like Dan Lok, because he helped me in a way, in a small portion of my sales pitch process. And that's just part of it. You know what I mean? I also used Oren Klaff's methods to structure my pitch deck the way that he's taught me as well. And then most importantly, Grant Cardone is an individual that has really taught me how to structure things a certain way in my pitch deck. So what I did is combine all these three things, some of the most valuable things that they've taught me in these, and combined it into my own pitch deck that has been working for me. And so that's how I find out if someone's, you know, full of shit, or if they're not, and I implement it, try it, see if it works. And it's been fun. It's actually exciting when you do that too, because it's nerve-wracking. You're taking a risk. You're putting yourself out there, and that's part of that growth I was talking about. So anyways, Dan Lok did a video recently I seen. He was talking about passion. He was saying you should not follow your passion. He was more or less saying you should have to earn the right to follow your passion. You should have to do the shit that you don't want to do, which probably goes back into what I was saying with the consistency thing, you know, doing things you don't want to do just for consistency and volume purposes. But he's basically saying you should not follow your passion. You need to do the things that you don't want to necessarily do. You need to work hard to earn that ability and create that time so that you can actually follow your passion. At least when we're talking about making money, when we're talking about generating income, I'm pretty sure that's what I gathered from him, is that, you know, the people that are so focused on doing what they love more than actually working hard and doing what, you know, of kind of ignoring what they love and doing what they know is necessary. I feel like my personal opinion, so here's the differences. Do you do what's more important, or do you do what makes you happy? What kind of person are you? What kind of person have you been? what has worked for you, or I guess what part has either one of those played in your life. Does the time in your life matter? Should you be doing what makes you happy early in life for income? Meaning, should you be chasing that passion early in life when you're like an 18-year-old, 16-year-old and trying to make money off of being a famous guitarist or an artist or this or that? Should you focus on being your primary source of being an income? Or should you put in the work for X amount of years and then on the side continue building your skills on your passion, but making the work your primary goal? Should you put in the work to earn that time later in life to start implementing your passion and maybe converting your passion to being your income eventually, after creating that more time, basically? And so that's a question that somebody should ask themselves. I think it's a very thought-provoking subject, and I think a lot of people might not even think about that too much, really. But I think it's important to keep the passion, the things you're passionate about, in your life. I don't think that your passion should be your primary focus, though. That's my personal opinion. I don't think that if your passion is art, I don't think that you should focus on art being something that you are going to immediately start making money on. I think it should be something that just kind of happens, but you also need to put yourself out there. So meaning you should have something solid, some kind of stability of income, right? Whether it's working as a bank teller and on the side you're an artist, whether it's you're a construction guy like myself, but on the side you're a guitar player and you're doing the band thing. I think that's the way you should structure your life, and also promote your passion while you're doing it. You know what I mean? Like if someone says, "What do you do?" Well, you say, "Well, I'm a bank teller, but my passion is in art, and so eventually I'm going to make money off of art, and I'm constantly networking and doing this to do that. I'm constantly gaining, improving on my skills." And so that's how I think that should be answered when someone says, "What do you do? What do you do for?" Even if they don't specify, what do you do for a living? If that's what they say, that should be your response for what you do for a living too. You know what I mean? So that they know that I'm not going to be a bank teller the rest of my life. That's not my goal. I'm not looking for a 401k as a bank teller. I'm not looking for comfort and security and to be on payroll for the rest of my life. I think it's very important. I agree with Dan Lok with what he's saying. I don't think people should buy into this idea that you need to be doing what you love for your income focus, for your primary income focus. I think that shit should be earned, and it should be established as you earn it. And so you should just continue to work on those skills that you're passionate in. Time is going to present itself when it should, as long as you're continually promoting yourself. Good things will come towards you when you're promoting yourself and what you really want to be involved in eventually, I think. You were saying Jim, you were saying there are people that make money in a lot of ways, but to make money, when I started out, it was in the farm and you hated it. We hardly ever get to do what we like to make income. Probably very few do. Exactly. There is a 1%, 3%, whatever, who are lucky to immediately get money off of their passion. But we got to realize that's a very small percentage. It's a real number. That's a very real small percentage. You were saying I probably enjoy it more now, mostly just drawing my SS and lesions. But you do some consulting. I enjoy it more than when you started. Okay, so you enjoy it more than when you started. Yeah. And I wonder if you started doing consulting. Consulting is something that if you enjoy doing consulting now. Oh, pensions. There you go. Got it. If you enjoy doing pension consulting now, um, that's something that comes with experience. So even if that was your passion when you were young, you couldn't really get any credibility. You know what I mean? Trying to have a young buck try to give somebody consulting on something they have very little experience about is just not realistic. So in that particular scenario, it probably makes sense for you to implement that later on in your life, which is why it worked out so well for you. And I'm glad you find passion in that. If you enjoy doing it, that's pretty cool. But again, going back to what you were saying, you said, you started out on the farm and you hated it. I think there's a huge growth process in doing that. I also hated, my first job was McDonald's. I hated it. My second job, while I was still working at McDonald's, while I was in high school, I was working these two jobs, was working at a meat packing company, cleaning up the blood and the slaughter off of ceilings and walls and all these augers that grinded and cut up meat. I hated that job, but I liked the fact that the thing I liked about it was I hated the job itself, but I liked that I was putting myself through that discipline. I enjoyed the fact that I was separating myself from the normal high schoolers. Hardly any high schoolers had a job to begin with, let alone did they have a job. Like, I worked at McDonald's for a year and then transitioned into the meatpacking company for about 6 months. And before I did that, I was working both of those jobs while I was in high school. So, I had my own cell phone and things like that. I basically was paying for a lot of my stuff. There wasn't a lot of high school kids that had their own cell phone, which is kind of weird. That changes now. Obviously, everybody's got a cell phone now. That's back when those little Nokia, those little itty bitty Nokias were a thing, and they're really cool. Everybody's had a Nokia. I got a lot of value from that because I did something that I didn't want to do, and so there's a lot of character development through that process, and that's where I started really honing in and realizing, like, I have something different about myself than the average person. I can put myself through struggle. I can put myself through suffering and really just block that out because I know that there's something more important on the other side of this. And so I didn't really know what it was. Now I can explain what that was. I can articulate that. But at the time, I didn't know what that was. I just knew that I was doing something different and I enjoyed it. I was challenging myself, right? And I really enjoyed that part I enjoyed that about myself, and I enjoyed going through that process and what I gained out of those processes. So, yeah, that's cool. You said you had to work since you were 9. Yeah, I know a lot of people that have had to do that, and the times are not like that anymore, my friend. Hardly ever. You won't ever find a 9-year-old that's working. You won't even ever find a 13-year-old that's hardly ever working. And you were saying you also had 2 jobs till you got hired at the mill when you were 18. So that sounds like me and you had a similar high school experience as far as working and going to school at the same time. So you married at 16? Holy shit, dude. You did janitor work at the 410 and drive-in movies theater. Right on, right on. I can't believe you got married at 16. That's pretty crazy. How old was your wife at that time? If you were 16, was she older or was she 15? I didn't know you could marry at 16. I thought that was legal or something. That's pretty crazy. Was it official marriage or was it just a pact you guys made? Okay, she was 17. Yeah, that's crazy. That's way too young, man. And real quick here, thinking back on that experience now, was that a move you should not have made? Was that a bad decision? Was that something you don't regret? Was that something you learned? Do you wish you didn't get married at 16? What's your quick opinion on that? Because I can tell you my opinion. I think that was probably way too young for anybody to get married. Definitely kids for sure. I was freaking out when I was 30 years old when I had Malia. And then I was thinking about, a lot of my family members that had kids when they were like 16 and 18 too. And I'm like, how would you ever do that? How would you, if I'm freaking out at 30 having a kid, my life would have been ruined having a child at 16 or 18. So, pretty crazy. Married 38 years and you would do it again. Right on. That's pretty cool, man. Well, I'm glad it worked out for you. Yeah, and you might be the exception. And you might be the exception on that one. Times were different too, back then. It's just more of a thing that marriage was valued a little bit differently than it is now. I don't know. It's so much easier for people to get married to somebody that they just, haven't really thought about being with for that long. It's just something it just seems very more rushed these days when people are getting married. And so, I mean, the divorce rate is over 50%, I believe, nowadays. And so that's pretty crazy. So we know it's not successful. We know there's a lot of mistakes being made in the marriage world. So yeah, you should be very fortunate that I mean, of course, even though, so you guys, I don't know if you're talking about Laura or not, or if it's someone else that you married, but eventually did you guys divorce then, or something else happened that I didn't know about? And then I'm going to get back, and then while you answer that, you were saying it was different. It was different and difficult, and you had a lot of family involvement. Yeah, that's pretty important too, family involvement. You said it took a lot of work. Absolutely. I imagine it takes way more work the younger you are as well. And so after 38 years, so it's over 60% then, huh? Okay. So you and Laura were married 38 years, right on. That's crazy. And then you finally divorced. That always surprises me when people are married for that long and then the divorce happens. It's pretty crazy to me, and just brings up a lot of questions, you know what I mean? And I imagine it brings up a lot of questions for you and any individual who's been in that scenario. It's like, I'll just say that, a lot of questions, you know what I mean? That's a long period of time to be together, and then to finally come to that conclusion that you either weren't meant for each other, or that you are just at a different point in your life where it doesn't make sense. It's just a crazy transition in your life, you know what I mean? So I don't gotta tell you that. I'm sure you know damn well. But that's cool. It seems like you had a good experience with it though, and so I'm happy for you that you went through that and you still had a good outcome, or I guess you enjoyed that time period of your life. And so very cool, man. But yeah, back to what Dan Lok was saying, I think it's important when he's talking about, you should not follow your passion. You should be working your ass off. Yeah, you were saying she wanted to go and you let her go. Okay, well, that's, not like you have a choice. If someone wants to not be involved, then, that's their decision, but it's definitely a tough thing to transition from, and tough thing to probably wrap your head around after such a long chunk of your life has been with that person, I imagine. Yeah, I would say Dan Lok talking about following your passion, you need to work your ass off first before you focus on your passion. Those people that are saying, I think Gary Vee says this, and that's one of the things I don't agree with Gary Vee. I love the guy and I appreciate a lot of his messages, but the handful of things that he says that I wouldn't agree with and that I think are very counterproductive, this would be one of them. He's very big on doing what you love, focusing on what makes you happy, even if making 40, this is a different path of things, but he was saying, if you're a person that makes 40K a year and you're completely happy with that, then, that's what matters. That's okay. If you're, a person that makes, 6 figures or higher a year and you're not happy, then that's a problem. So I think that statement is very broad, and it can be expanded on a lot more. And I feel like if I had that conversation with him, he would be able to also agree with me maybe, and not at least see what I'm talking about, because I feel like the individual. So here's what I think. The individual that's making $40K a year and that's completely happy, I think they're kidding themselves. They might be happy, but their expectations are very low, and they're living a very, very bare minimum life, and they're not able to provide a lot of things. And I'm not saying like it needs to be over extravagant and you need to be living this luxurious life of just money being thrown around. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it is nice to structure your life and eventually at least have this goal to reach to where money's never a problem. At least, because I can tell you right now, the 40K a year person that's very happy, when an emergency pops up, 40K a year is nothing. So if you're going to have an emergency, I can tell you right now that 40K a year, no matter how much they kid themselves, they have got they've got a lot of stressful things in their life regarding around finance, whether it's an emergency that pops up and they can't afford it, they don't have the funds to pay for this emergency, whether it's a medical emergency, whether the car breaks down, whether all 3 cars that they own break down at the same time, all these things that come up, whether they need to start paying for daycare $1,200 a month unexpectedly. These are surprises that you should be able to have income that comes in enough to just be able to tackle this stuff as it comes up. You should not have to. If you're focused on being happy, I need to know more context behind that. What is making you happy? Why are you happy with the 40K a year? Are you never stressed about? It's a mentality thing. If that person is really happy, then I think their mentality's. I think they got a problem with the mentality, and it's very low. They're aiming very low, and they might not realize what their problems really are, meaning those emergencies I talked about. You know what I mean? I think that's something that needs to be acknowledged. If you're just oblivious to those things and you're like, well, I don't care, I'm just really happy. You got the people that are really happy and then they're creating problems that they just don't think is a problem, which is a problem in itself. And then you got those people that are lying to themselves. They're saying, I'm happy making this amount, and they're lying to themselves. All right, they'll say, I know people like this. They'll tell themselves and tell me that like, hey, I don't need much. I'm happy with this. I'm perfectly fine with the bare minimum. I don't need no more, no less. And this is the way I want to live my life. And I would honestly say that I feel like that person has lied to themselves so long that lie has become real for them, and they don't even want to put in that effort. The fact of the matter is the 40K a year individual is very capable of making more. And the other fact of that is that their life would be better being able to provide more for anybody in their life, including themselves. I'm not going to sit here and say that money buys happiness, but poverty sure in the shit didn't buy happiness. I can tell you that. Poverty didn't do anything for anybody except create frustration and create stress and anxiety. So I would say that money is the catalyst to being able to provide a platform to be happy in. All right, if you want to get real technical with it. And so in that regard, if you want to say money buys happiness, it can, if you structure it that way. If you're focused on money, and you think that money is going to buy you happiness, I think that's a dangerous path to go down too. So it's a very slippery slope to go down. You should be focused on money highly, because money is the currency that we live in. Money provides options, and options is what makes people happy. having the option, you know what I mean? Even if you have a ton of options, but you choose this one thing and you just, that's too many options, I'm fine here. Just having the ability and knowing that I'm choosing this, but if I wanted to, I can go to any one of these options. That's a good feeling rather than being the 40K a year guy and being like, well, this is my only option. This is what I've created for myself, and this is where I'm going to live. This is where I'm going to be. And then you got those people that start lying to themselves about that, and or legitimately are happy because they think they have been taught that. They have been taught that should be happiness. And so I think that's a thing that's taught to us. But I think going back to what Gary Vee was saying, you know what I mean? Like the individual. So I talked a lot about the 40K a year individual and his mentality and my thoughts on that. Let's talk about the 100K a year individual who's not happy with his life. That can be looked at in many different ways. If the 100K a year guy is not happy because he's, you know, I would need to know why this individual is not happy in order to give my personal opinion. But let's just say he's not happy because he's doing something that he doesn't want to do. Great. That goes back to what Dan Pena was saying, not following your passion. Okay, if he's doing something he doesn't like, at least he's making enough money to put himself eventually in a position where he can follow his passion. That's the best position to be in. When you're making enough money like that, you need to be doing something on the side that is your passion. That way you can get out of that position that you're unhappy about. If you're unhappy for a different reason, you know, I don't know what the other reason could be. You know, like I said, I need a little more context behind that statement that he made where he said, you know, the 100K a year individual is not happy. And the 40K a year guy who's perfectly happy living that, he was saying that that's what matters. That's what's most important, is being happy. Okay, let's use that same, going with that statement and that thought process. You should, the 100K a year guy who's not happy should be focused on being happy eventually. So he needs to have a goal that's going to get him to be happy. What's that going to take? Hard work and doing things that you're not going to be enjoying. It's going to take doing things you don't like. Now, what better position would you want to be in? Doing something you don't like and making 40K a year, or doing something you don't like and making 100K a year? Which position is going to put you in a better spot to actually get out of that unhappy feeling? I think we all know the answer to that. And so I think that's kind of a dumb statement that he made. At least I need to understand a little bit more behind his thought process in making that statement. Don't get me wrong, I like the guy and I like a lot of what his message is, but that one doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't think you should be focused on what makes you happy. Well, you should be focused on what makes you happy, but let me get real specific with this. If we're talking about a percentage, your primary focus on what is making you income to get to the point to where you can make money off your passion should be, out of 100%, just using numbers, it should be like 60%, maybe 70% focused on your income, your skill level, what you're good at making money at, and that 30 to 40% down here being focused on your passion, meaning you're working on those skills, you're getting better at it, and you're promoting yourself, and you're creating content that you're networking with people, you're getting that out there and letting people know, like, hey, I'm here, I do this is what I'm about. Yeah, I know I'm a bank teller, I'm a fucking construction guy, I'm a whatever, you know what I mean? But this is what I eventually want to make money at. And eventually, with the combination of you actually making money and putting it into that goal and you putting yourself out there, I think it's a very real thing that's just going to converge and transition into being an opposite, to where now you're going to be in a position where you can make money off your passion. And you can probably at that point, depending on how much money you make, decide whether or not this previous thing that you were making money at is going to be sustainable or even worth your time anymore. So I think it needs to be looked at in that way, in my opinion. Going to what Jim, you were saying, we all need a goal. Without a goal or dream and a vision, we will just wander through your lives. Exactly. And some people like mediocrity. mediocrity breeds poverty. I completely agree with that. And I would, to elaborate, I think more people than some like mediocrity. Matter of fact, 76% of people live paycheck to paycheck. That falls into mediocrity. So that gives you an idea. Those are real statistics. That gives you an idea, meaning those people don't even have $1,000 to their name. They don't have any emergency money. They don't have anything available to them. I can guarantee you there's a lot of stress within those 76% of people in their lives, financial stress especially. You said you would like to find out just once if money makes you happy, though. Good point. Yeah, if money doesn't make you happy, let me be the judge of that. Exactly. Don't tell me money doesn't buy us happiness. And what's funny is the people that make that statement usually have a lot of money. The ones that really love throwing that statement out there, they really have money, and so they've been there. But it's easy to say that when you've not had a problem and money has been available to you. But then you also got, on the flip side, you also have a ton of people that are living in poverty, that are living paycheck to paycheck, that use that statement as an excuse. They use that as an excuse to stay poor, to stay mediocre, to stay in that position where nothing is expected of them any more than the normal societal expectations. You know, that's a statement that I hate, is like they'll say that to hide behind, well, money doesn't buy you happiness. It gives them a green light. It gives them a pass to stay average, to stay in the 40K a year bracket. And so it's something to really recognize for people that are in that and can relate to that. You were saying maybe the 100K uses all of his time to make it, but the 40K has more time to do things with family or whoever. Yes, but right. And so that can be looked at many ways too. So I would say that the 40K individual who's applying, you know, here's the thing. I think it's highly unlikely that if the person that's making 40K, he can't really provide as much time as someone who's actually made a ton of money off their passion can. Okay, so here's the difference. Here's what I mean. Let's use a scenario. The 40K a year guy is working for somebody, all right? More than likely, he is an employee for a company. He's working on someone else's dream. He's working on building someone else's brand, okay? So we know what his hours are like. You're at least 40 hours a week. That only leaves you a few hours in the evening, and then maybe Saturdays and Sundays if you spend all that time with your family. Now, let's fast forward to the 100K guy year. He has, let's say, no, let's not even use, okay, well, yeah, let's compare those two real quick. So the 100K a year guy, he's probably in the same scenario. Matter of fact, he's probably has to work more. More than likely, if you're making that much, you probably have to work a little bit of overtime and work a lot more. If we're talking about for this example's scenario here, let's just say he works for an employer. He probably has to work Saturdays sometimes. He probably has to work 10, 12-hour days. So that leaves him no family time. We get it, right? So that's not an ideal scenario to be in when you're talking about family time. However, if staying at 100K a year and being an employee for the rest of your life is that person's goal and he's comfortable with that, then that's probably not good for the family camaraderie, all right? That's not good for family time. But I would say if that 100K a year individual has this goal of getting out of that situation, ultimately making money off of passion or creating more time somehow, creating time is the goal. And if money's going to buy that, that should be a goal. That's happiness. If money creates time, money does buy happiness in that scenario. And so maybe, let's say the 100K guy is using that to get to a point in his life to where he has control over his time of day, because now he owns his own business with his own passion. Let's say the 100K a year guy he was an artist and he just didn't get that break. He just didn't know how to land a job and make money off of his art. Now let's say he's finally got to a point to where he can make money off of his passion, and he's making, even if he's making less than 100K a year, now he's created a passion and a life for himself that he controls the time in. Now you're able to now you're able to allocate more time with your family, because now you own your own schedule. You're your own boss. You can control when you can be more productive. If you want to work, the beauty about working for yourself is you can work late at night. You know what I mean? You can stay up till 2 a.m. doing an art project and spend time with your kids during the day. Now you can literally spend more time with your family. So there's so many ways to look at, and again, that can be used as an excuse as well for the 40K a year person. He's going to sit there and say money doesn't buy you happiness. Well, another excuse he'll use is, well, I might only make 40K a year, but I like spending time with my family because I can spend Saturdays and Sundays with my family. Well, if your goal is to only spend Saturdays and Sundays with your family for the rest of your life, I would say that's not a very optimal amount of time to spend with your family. You should have a goal of being able to create. What if you were in a position to where you can take a whole week off whenever you wanted to? Wouldn't that be a better scenario to be in, to provide your family members with more time? I would say so. And that's actually what's in my mind, is being able to get in a position where I can, and I've already done that a little bit, although I have to work my ass off. I really could take more time than I want. This is my business. I can do whatever I want. If I wanted to take a week off, I can. Yes, I'll still have to answer calls during that, but if I don't want to solely put my energy on the business, I can do this if I want to. If you're working for somebody else at 40K a year, you just don't have that option. And so I think these lies that the mediocre people, the 76% of people living paycheck to paycheck, tell themselves are very counterproductive, and they're designed to keep you in that position because you're just giving yourself excuses. You're justifying things for yourself. And if you were listening to me on the last podcast, I talked about this, about you can literally tell yourself anything to justify any bad decision you make. You can restructure your self-talk to justify those bad decisions that you make. Any scenario, think about it, anything. You can give yourself the green light if you want to, right? What's more important is being realistic with yourself. What's real, what's actually going to work, what's more important for you, and stop thinking about the now. If you got to sacrifice a little bit of family time, I'm the type of person that is willing to sacrifice some of my family time, which it sucks, it does. But I have hopes of providing way more time in the future. And I know that I have to give up some of that time. Some of these, a lot of people say this, the societal expectations play a huge role on your back of your mind too. They'll say, well, you'll never get that time back, when they're young. Like for instance, if someone's looking at my life as an example and they say, well, if you work your ass off right now when she's 8, by the time you get to this point where you can provide time, she's already going to be 16 or 20 or whatever. It's going to be too late. And unfortunately, I've put myself in that situation where I made these good decisions late in my life. And so that's something I've committed to, and I've made that sacrifice for. Fortunately, I am able to actually being able to carve out some time. Like I said, I have created my own business where I can every now and then allocate way more time to me and my daughter when I want, you know what I mean? And so, exactly. A lot of people project their own guilt onto you and societal expectations guilt onto you. And they'll really just try to, it comes in many forms. I use this as an example on one of the podcasts before where people try to guilt trip you about having one child. There's a societal expectation of that, believe it or not. It's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, she's your only child. Oh, are you always, you're only going to have one? don't you think she should have a sibling? No. Is there something wrong with that? I mean, that'd be great, but I mean, no, I just want to provide all my time to my daughter. There's all these little stupid societal expectations that people put onto you and project because they've been projected it, and they just are a sponge and they just parrot it. They just parrot all this very unproductive societal expectation to you and try to project that shit on you and try to own space in your head is what they're doing, really. And so I just have learned how to stiff arm all that negative shit and proceed with my life the way I know I'm going to be able to make it better. And that's with time, that's with hard work, that's with consistency, that's with doing things I don't want to do very often until I get to a point to where I don't have to do it as often. But honestly, I think I'm going to always live my life like this, to where it's just going to be that discipline of doing things I don't want to do. I think if you start getting away from that mentality, then you're going to start getting surprised with things that are going to nip you in the butt. You're going to get those unexpected things that happen, and they're going to devastate you. And it is always the unexpected that will devastate you. And so I like to be prepared as much as possible. All right. So you were saying that's a choice. Nice that you have it. Like a crab pulling you back into the hot pot. Exactly. That's a good point. Misery loves company, man. You've heard that before too. Misery loves company is a very, very real thing. And you will, if you haven't heard that saying now, I know you have, Jim. For any younger folk that's listening to this podcast, if you have never heard that saying, pay attention to that and take a look at your life and pay attention to the people that and how they view their life and the sayings they have. Misery does love company, and they love to project that shit. So it's a very real thing. And once you separate yourself from that, they know it, and they know that they don't ever own space in your head, and that's very powerful. And that's something to actually grow upon big time. So, okay, let's see here. So I think that's it. We're running 9 o'clock now. I had a rant to go on, but that's okay. I'm going to rotate that into the next episode since we're running short on time. So good talk today. I like what we talked about, especially because like I said, I took that a little bit a nap right before the podcast, and so I woke up all rushed and trying to get this put together. And I'm usually very prepared, but I've been working really hard, and it's catching up with me, staying up late working on stuff. It gets me tired now, and as you get older, you can only do that for so long. If you do that a week straight, and just hits you on the weekend, and I've been doing it very frequently. So goes back into that hard work, that consistency. You know, I don't want to stay up till 1 o'clock with my face on this computer. You think I want to do that? No, but I know it pays off, and I know it's part of the process. And so I'm going to keep doing it until I get to that goal that I'm going to reach, which is more time. So glad to have you, Jim. Glad you stuck around and had these conversations with me, my friend. I will see you next week or next podcast whenever you show up. By the way, real quick, if you haven't seen the post I put out, we're gonna have a special guest from Wormhole. Huge fucking band. I'm a big fan. If you're into that tech death, slam death, any type of metal, this band is very cool. They have highly influenced my guitar playing in the last year and a half. And I really took a liking to their style and the way they've been marketing themselves too. I really love the impact they have made on the music community and my life, to be honest. So really stoked to have those guys on the podcast. So if you haven't got that scheduled up on your calendar, mark it, make the time. Do not be lame. Do it. Get in here. Stop saying you're busy. You're not busy. You're not busy with anything important. More than likely you're not. So make the time. Get in here. All right. It's going to be epic. It's going to be really, I don't know. I'm a fangirl right now. So love it. So, all right, Jim, we'll check you later. Anybody else, Phil, anybody else who's been watching, thanks for stopping in here. I appreciate the feedback and the contribution. And as always, I will see you guys next week. But until then, keep it contagious and keep it viral. Have a good night, guys.